I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the playoff basketball podcast. I'm Ben Dietrich. With me, Cookies, is Jordan Rodelli.
Hello, it's me.
It's him. It's really him.
It's really me. It's little dumbass Rodelli in the house.
For a smarter take, here's Andrew Quo.
Dumbass Quo in the house.
And Dumbass Ben is also here. So, the dumbasses have been reunited for a playoff.
Assembled. We're just like the dumbass Voltron.
Everyone, yeah.
It's like a human body, but three dumb brains together. Pig brains, if you will.
Oh.
Next week, we'll talk pig brains.
Tune in next week. Big brains.
They're on the agenda for a future week. What's going on, guys? You in playoff mode?
Yes. Always in playoff mode, playoff form.
I wish I was going to a premiere tonight.
Me too.
Who's going to a premiere?
Not me.
Oh, Ben, you didn't say anything.
Yeah, you look quite sharp. You look like you may have shaved, showered.
No, none of those things. Well, I think this reminds me of that adage. You know, act like you've been there before. When you've got a big premiere
You
to
have
go
been
to.
there before.
I mean, I'm generally, at premieres.
What are you going to wear, dude?
On one hand, you're like, oh, maybe you throw the suit on. You're going to a premiere.
Oh yeah, Ben's real tree tuxedo that he's been hiding.
I wish.
That's tight.
But that incredible Instagram and Twitter account that shows all these photos from premieres from the 90s,
Incredible.
I'm like, it needs to be of the moment. So that people can look back and laugh years later if there's a photo of you at a premiere.
So you want to timestamp this photo?
I think you need to. Just wearing a suit, like super boring. I'm thinking a real tree tuxedo.
With a bucket hat.
I'm just dressing as ASAP Ferg.
What would be the most of the moment outfit you can think of?
I don't know, like Dickies, some
Check.
Hoka.
I mean,
Check.
Hoka's for sure.
Hoka's, Dickies.
Some camo,
Yeah, probably some camo.
something vintage.
Definitely something vintage. Maybe like a padded jacket or something like that.
I've got all these things. I
Yeah.
can put this look together. I feel like last week we all realized we had worn camouflage.
The Cookies crew was full on camo. We disappeared in the lab, basically.
But it was from various military campaigns, so it was not, or hunting. There was not a coherent camouflage pattern.
Yes, I only wear ethical camouflage, and that's the one that hides you from your animal prey and not fellow human beings.
Or it's to hide you from animal prey so you can kill them.
Oh, yeah.
What about digital camouflage? How do you feel about that?
That's like dazzle.
Like-
That's a dazzle thing, right? That's just for like
Refracting light and
Yeah.
stuff.
not my favorite camo.
I thought digital camouflage was ideally
You could hide on the internet and creep people.
Trolling people in
that's
digital camo.
No, that's a proxy server. No, but digital camo was like for cameras. Isn't that the idea that on cameras you'd
That
be
makes sense.
obscured, or from like a digital monitor, if someone's looking at it that is somewhat granulated, it wouldn't stand out? I don't know.
Sure. I have DirecTV. I co-sign that. I used to have DirecTV. That's the worst service ever. When it's cloudy, it doesn't work. When do you want to watch TV? When it rains.
When it's cloudy, it doesn't work. Is that in the fine print? Like,
I called them at one point. I was just like, I had people over for a game. Shout out to Will Welsh. And we were ready to watch, and it was raining, and there was no signal. And I called them, and I was like, don't tell me your satellite signal can't get through these clouds. And they were like, it cannot get through those clouds. It's a West Coast service. It's for
that's
the desert.
nuts.
I remember I had that a long time ago when I used to like football many moons ago, and we got like the league pass.
Dude,
on-
football is back. That draft was amazing.
Stop.
All right.
And
I don't want to go into the sin bin.
I do remember this. Yeah, you were dipping a toe in the sin bin right there. But I recall this problem with DirecTV, and I'd forgotten that it was a thing, and it feels very like 90s.
Although we were watching the game at a bar yesterday, and it was like missing plays because it was like trying to like
Catch up,
it's-
buffering.
It was really annoying.
Well, what you didn't see was all the people in digital camouflage who are scooting around, around in the background.
the court.
Isn't it really funny when you are getting a service like Movie Pass or something like that?
For example,
Not to bring it into something I'm very familiar with.
and they just can't make it work. how it's meant to,
Go
or they
off,
have to
King.
do something else outrageous and completely unacceptable in order to make it work. Like,
yes, Your
For
Excellency.
example, I was at Metrograph last summer, watching the documentary about Madonna. One of the greatest
Truth or Dare?
one of the greatest
great-
documentaries ever
great
made.
one.
It was me and some other dude in the cinema at like 2 in the afternoon.
was it a premiere?
It wasn't a premiere.
What were you
We
wearing?
will be coming back to that. Don't think I forgot.
Okay, because
I don't know why you like jump back in that because we're gonna have a deep dive.
Someone's
into
about
this
to get
premiere.
roasted.
And
Is it Jordan?
probably. Anyway, I watched this fucking movie and it was freezing. I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt because it's 90 fucking degrees outside. That's why I'm in the movie theater, because it's 90 degrees. It was 54 degrees in the movie theater
You can ask them to change the temp.
I
right?
did.
What happened?
numerous times. I was like, seriously, you fucking idiots. This is ridiculous. I was freezing. I had that thing that you do when you pull your t-shirt down over your legs. Like, I'm huddled in the seat in their stupid,
That's
like,
what I do
cool
at
guy
cookies.
school seats or whatever the fuck they have here. Metrograph sucks, by the way. Shout out to Metrograph.
We've talked about this. I don't want to be eating $20 chicken fingers while I watch Pet
Fuck no.
Cemetery.
Wait, does Metrograph serve food?
That's the whole deal, right? No,
Yeah.
am I?
No,
yeah,
they
yeah.
do.
Really? I thought their whole deal was uncomfortable chairs.
It's,
And
it's
and coldness.
uncomfortable chairs, $15 gummy bears that they take out of a Haribo packet and put into a plastic
At least a
cup.
Haribo. Shout out to Haribo.
Fuck yeah, Haribo. Anyway, so I'm like, seriously, why is it so cold in there? And they're like, well, the screen will steam up if we don't keep it really cold in there because of the weather outside. And
That
my
is a
take
really
was,
good answer.
it's a really good answer. But I was also like, maybe you just don't
Make it
show a
steamy.
movie in that movie theater then, or it comes with a warning, or you give people blankets. Have blankets if it's
Like
going to
an
be that
airplane.
cold. Yeah. It was way colder than any airplane you've ever been on.
But the one thing it did do was stop your complaining, right?
No, I fucking walked out. I couldn't handle it anymore.
You walked out of Truth or Dare because it was too cold?
Yeah, and it was on film too. I've seen that movie a bunch of times, but it was too cold, and
The Truth or Dare
it
expert
took
has
well
logged on.
over an hour for my feet to get feeling back in them. That's how cold it was in there.
That's not a coldness issue. That's a health issue.
No,
An hour?
that's how cold it was in there. I was in there for like an hour and a half,
And you lost
Freezing.
circulation in your feet.
For an hour?
sitting 50-degree weather with shorts and a t-shirt and no socks.
Were they short shorts like Stockton?
Yes, there were swim trunks, bro.
Were you freeballing?
Yes,
Yeah, that could happen. I could see.
there was you
Jordan
know,
is a
I
very
had-
tall person.
I had the banana hammock rocking, but everything else was good. So, all right, premiere time. Where are you going? What's this for?
Well, we don't want to out him about where he's going to be tonight.
Yeah, that's true. I don't
Well, it's
wanna-
not like any old schmo who might want to approach Ben is going to be able to because he's got his golden ticket to his cool premiere.
Will you be wearing your Cookies Matrix sweatshirt?
Yeah, I want to wear some cookies gear just in case.
You get papped?
But the thing is, right. But the thing is, I always avoid the step and repeat because I'm not famous. So like, when you go to those things, and I'm press, so you kind of like go around it.
Yeah.
But it's also a weird, conspicuous like loser move too. like people are going through, and you're like, no thanks, I know my place. It's to go around here and not pose in front of you.
It's either that or you just think you're too good for paparazzi.
Well, it's a real no-win situation. You either have to pose and no one takes photos of you because
You've really
you're
found yourself
no
in
one.
a Hugh Grant Notting Hill sort of conundrum here. Like,
It's a real quandary, yes.
yeah, and he was a fake journalist as well for Horse and Hound.
Well,
Horse and Hound, are they still in business? I feel like layoffs hit Horse and Hound pretty hard.
Yeah,
one of the nicer things I've ever been a part of was like I was at one of these situations in Tokyo, and they took pictures of fancy people, and we were clearly not fancy. And the photographer was so nice. He was like, "You guys want pictures of you guys? You guys look nice." So we just stepped in the middle, and he was like, "I'll take your pictures." It was a really sweet move. I thought that was very kind.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
The only time that happened to me, I was front row at a Fashion Week event at the Pringles show or something. I don't know.
What?
Yes, the D'Antoni collection.
I really
7
didn't.
seconds
I
or
really
less.
didn't. I really had no business being there at all. But my friend was like, "Come to this thing," and they put me in the front row, where I didn't want to be. And the photographer went along the front row taking pictures of every single celebrity, and jumped over me and started taking pictures of it. It was so egregious.
Welcome to my
and
life.
It made my day.
Have you guys ever been next to a famous person who's been passed over and they're just like so confused? It's like someone
Yeah.
from like HBO, like on a show on HBO, and they skip over them and they're like, "What the fuck? I'm on that show," and I'm like, "I don't know what happened."
Well, there was that one occasion where we were at one of Eddie Wong's book launches or something, and they were playing Mobb Deep, and the crowd was going crazy. But we were
That
sitting
doesn't
next.
sound like a.
We were sitting next
a
to
scenario.
We were sitting next to Prodigy though, and
Rest in
nobody was
peace.
acknowledging the fact that he was in the room. Like no one recognized him, but they recognized his song. That was slightly depressing.
Was that the one on that rooftop?
No, I
at a
think it was in a
hotel?
room.
So old.
But to Jordan's point, I have a question for you. Sitting front row at a fashion show, what were you doing with your legs?
Oh, this is a big hot topic.
Wow, I definitely didn't have them stuck out. Is that?
Because the photographers will always yell like, "Uncross your legs!" So that's like, as he said, a big topic, because if women are there wearing dresses, they're not supposed to cross their legs because your legs are extended when they're crossed,
Yes.
so that photos show like one person's leg sticking out and it looks really weird. But are you supposed to also just like listen to photographers and sit how they say? That's why he's saying it's sort of a topic of debate.
Why are you there? It's a question of like, are you there for a photo or are you there to experience it? Clearly, I think you're there for the photo. Like, people don't care that you want to experience this collection. It's like, you're famous, you're getting in this photo.
I think legs should be uncrossed. That's my take, because ultimately what comes away from that whole presentation, the whole runway show, are the photos that people see of the person walking down. That's what the designer needs out of it, other than the experience. And yeah, get your legs out of the photo.
Just look.
So, rules of engagement.
Subway rules.
Ooh, which are broken constantly.
Ugh.
You're a flagrant man spreader, huh?
I wish I could be more of a man spreader. Even if I tried to spread as much as I could, I don't take up that much room.
Do you lean on the pole?
If it's empty.
I
If
fucking
the car's-
hate pole leaners. That's,
If-
that's my pet peeve.
If it's
Pole leaners.
empty, I'll lean on the pole.
Yeah. What's wrong with leaning on the pole? How
If
many
no- if
hands?
it's-
How many hands do you need?
If it's empty.
If it's empty.
Sure.
But you cannot if there's
Oh,
other
but
people
if
there.
someone's there and you're holding the pole and then someone leans against your hand, it's just like,
Isn't
that's
it?
infuriating.
It's like 50% of New York living is like traveling, walking, subway politics, right? It's just like, dude, you're not supposed to pass me there, or like you're not supposed to walk behind me. You're not supposed to lean on the pole. Like,
You're not supposed to stop in the middle of the stairs to check your phone as soon as you get reception.
Hate that. Also, people on the left side on escalators, not walking.
yeah, that drives me nuts. But I'm a
you
douche
think,
because
you think this is a
you know,
carnival ride? Like, whew, get to the top for free, sick. Like,
It sounds like you
move
just want to
over.
go fast. Are you going to see the Sonic movie?
Quo's back, baby. Segway King.
Oh, what's trending? Sonic the Hedgehog.
I mean, I didn't have anything other this about escalators other than please move to the right.
But back to New York. Do you think it's fucked up that we just
Fucked
like
his own Segway.
Yeah.
prioritize speed all the time? Like, it's like we'll rush through like a red light just to like idle in traffic like 40 feet ahead. That's
I mean,
like
how
such
else
a New York
how-
thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But how else are you going to get your kicks?
Like drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, aren't we just all coming up with small little ruses to occupy our time while we're doing the drudgeries
Waiting for
of life?
the inevitable.
Like when
death
you're
that-
at Whole Foods, when it has a little ticker that goes and you're like trying to desperately count the people in front. Like, okay, there's 5 people there,
love
7
doing that.
there. which
5
is
people
this.
times 7 items with this person.
But that person's a couple, so like they're probably only going to be
Always
one. Are they together?
The Whole Foods near my house added a 4th lane like in the last year. And I heard some people being like, "Oh, it's going to go faster because of the fourth lane." It's the same number of people.
Literally the same.
Yeah, they should just add one more person at the register, and then it'll go faster.
Make it 1 lane.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
They should just have they should just have somebody there like watching for lane hoppers and just yelling at them to stay in their lane.
The Whole Food cops are out. Like, it's tough at Whole Foods. I like Trader Joe's, man. It's mellow. Selection not as good.
I was kind of coppish at the Whole Foods.
Oh, that's surprising. You being a cop? Tell us more about you acting like a law enforcement.
Sir, blue lives matter. And you've crossed a thin blue line. No, so like Whole Foods has the 2 lines and over here, and you've got the little ticker that alternates who gets beckoned to a cashier. So when you walk up and there's one person in line and someone's just gone, there's someone like here at an empty spot. So I just walked up to the empty spot, and then it ticked, and then I went, and the guy was there, started walking. I was like, "Sir, no."
It always happens.
But you have to do that though,
Yeah.
because otherwise now I'm going to go in your lane, and look, it's a system.
If someone forgets their turn and other people try on the fly to make up for it, it doesn't work. The whole thing falls apart.
Yeah, so I was like, look, he was an older gentleman. I was just like, "Sir,
Yeah.
it's me."
Yeah.
And he's just like, "But I was here before you." I'm like, "I didn't make the rules, man. Look at the screen. It has numbers."
And the other way, if someone on my left cuts me on my turn, I don't go. And everyone in back of me gets mad. I'm like, I can't go, though, because it'll throw the whole thing off. We're just going to have to wait another cycle. And they're always so mad, but there's no other way to do it. I mean, I could just...
But you confront them, as I did, about their line skipping. And you shame them back into their designated spot.
You could just Matumbo finger wag and be like,
No.
I did.
Not-
That's kind of what I did.
"Not on this day."
I didn't know he had to start doing that to the crowd, because if he did that to a player, it'd be a T. If he did it to the crowd, it wasn't a T. So he used to do it in people's faces. So you would just do it to, like, the general Whole Foods area. No.
Embiid got a tech for pointing at someone in the Nets series, like just the point. I mean, I guess that counts, but it was like he was kind of running away and looked back and pointed, like, "Tech him up." Like, I guess that's a tech. Also, to your point, like, it's not really wagging someone's face, like pointing at someone. You're like,
It's like how Donahue's feeling that day. It's like, I didn't win my bets tonight. Someone's getting teed up.
and also, you can never point as good as Sean Kemp dunking on Alton Lister or whoever that was.
That was filthy.
The dunk on 2-hand point at the guy on the ground, like, you can't top that point.
That what was that? Shaq on Chris Dudley, Knicks legend Chris Dudley. He didn't point though. I don't think. Did he point?
No, he pushed
him off.
pushed him and sort of like held his arms out there.
And then Dudley threw the ball at him.
It's one of my favorite highlights in NBA history.
It's awesome.
Because it's the brutal dunk on. He swings his legs and kind of bumps him with his belly, and then the "get off of me" and sends him into the stands. Brilliant. Shaq's best work.
It is Shaq's best work. And dealing with Robin for a few years of his career. Kobe Bryant.
Yeah. Steph Curry, incredible Robin.
He's one of the greatest role players of all time. He has to be up there with Kobe Bryant as one of the greatest role players, right?
Yeah. We need a little instant offense. You bring those guys off the bench.
It's
great
Shaq,
secondary piece.
Shaq and Durant do their damn thing, and they need a little help sometimes.
A little short chop on the side to help out Indiana.
Help me out, little buddy.
What were you trying to segue into futilely before? You'd attempted
Comedy.
a segue and then
Comedy.
and then you walked back your own segue.
I did. I know. Let's talk about comedy, though. Who's laughing at something?
Well done.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Slick. Well, so Jordan, you've been raving about
I've always been raving.
not just mad, but
Been
raving
raving.
about a new Netflix series. Tim
I was
Robinson
talking about dancing on drugs.
Oh, I was more thinking like
Thank you.
I was thinking of like howling at the moon.
Thank you for telling everyone about my perceived mental illness.
Why do people
was about
think a
to-
big party is a rave? It's not a rave. Wait, so I'm being a cop here. I'm a rave cop.
Yeah.
But what doesn't it have to involve drugs and dance music?
Does it? Oh no.
Like, is a big birthday party a rave?
It's not a rave party. It's a rave up.
Oh, it's definitely a rave up, but is it a rave?
No.
Isn't a rave just has to have like techno, right? Isn't just a
I don't know, right? So this is like the whole like punk thing, right? Like because a lot of musicians have like been defiant, whatever. But when you say punk, it's just like, oh, it's guitars, singing, drums, right? Like it defines like aesthetic. When people are like, oh, I went to a rave last night, I'm like, what was it like? It's like, oh, there were so many people there. I'm like, and
I think it's just.
I think a rave has to
electronic
be in a
music.
space that's not a club.
oh, that's interesting. I disagree with that, but
I know.
But the tunnel were raves like every weekend when I grew up.
But I'm kind of with Jordan on it too, though.
I don't know.
Like that was.
I didn't-
It has to
was-
be illegal?
It was rave music. It doesn't have to be illegal, but I don't. I think if it's outside of a club, that's a club night.
Yeah, I agree. That was not
okay.
a rave at a club. That's
fair.
just a club.
A rave was
That's fair.
generally an event like in a warehouse or at a docklands or a field.
Where are the bubbles? Show me the bubbles. Where's the foam?
And I think it has to have electronic music because if you're
Yes.
just playing disco or hip hop, then it's not a rave. It's a big party in a warehouse.
Do raves still happen in 2019?
Yes.
Yeah, I was at one recently for a story I'm working on
Where was it?
in the Naval Yards, and there was 5,000 people there.
What kind of music?
Techno,
What kind of techno?
hard techno.
Was it a corporate rave or was it a private underground type scenario? Was it like sponsored by Samsung?
Not to tip my hand, but no, it's like one that you would sign up and pay $50 to go to. It was not corporate, but it was also not underground at all.
Yeah.
I saw Slow Tie this weekend at China Chalet. Felt old, man. Very, very old. Slow Tie is great though. I was excited to see him, but I was very into. I don't go out anymore at all because there's basketball and the internet. But I did go out for this, and I went out trying to check out what the kids were wearing because I knew it's past my time, but I was still interested in the fashions, the drips. Like, what is Ben gonna wear at his premiere? I was doing recon.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And what am I going to wear?
Exactly what we wear, except they're just younger and cooler looking.
Yeah, that's the problem. They can wear old people's clothes and
Yeah.
look cool because they're young. It's a real conundrum that we've
I was
discovered
like,
here.
good
Oh, yeah.
shoes, good pants, sweatshirt. Oh, you're just younger and cooler.
Yeah. I mean, like we know this. I've been wearing walking shoes for many years, orthopedics.
Mephisto, shout out.
Mephisto, what's up? Reebok, what's up?
New Balance, what's up?
Yeah. But now I've aged into my clothes, which is awful because I just...
Great dad style. Now it's
Great.
oh,
stuff.
it's a great dad.
Yes, except I don't have kids.
You
So
guys
I've
got to
the
step
worst
into this
of all
Tai Chi
worlds.
world. We got to go granddad, man. Tai Chi.
So you're saying now that the youth is on dad styles, we need to step it up by another like 20, 30 years so that we can be the young ones. So old people will see us and say, like, oh, I'm 75 years old, but look at these whippersnappers. They look just like us. In
Just
our,
rolling into the Navy Yard in a coffin. Just like straight up, I'm dead, motherfucker. Try to top this one. I'm decomposing.
Speaking of decomposing dead things,
Go on.
there was a...
I was so ready for. I was like,
I love it.
I was like, Jordan's finally going to save the segues.
If you didn't just step over my Segway just then, I would have...
What's a Segway?
a Segway?
Is it a cool Segway?
No, it's a Segway that goes upstairs. Yeah,
I'm
take
with
that.
you. I'm with you.
Fuck me.
This is your life, Jordan.
All right, well,
This is my life. All right, admit it. I'm not watching basketball because I'm watching other shit. How's that for a segue?
Great, go on.
Cool. Number one thing I want to talk about that I watched that I know Ben enjoyed as well very much was the Monster Mash, also known as Game of Thrones.
Oh man, I thought we were going to comedy. All right, go on.
Not comedy.
Not comedy.
Okay.
Andrew, as the only other person here who appreciates
Of
the
the thronage.
art of the televisions, tell us what you thought of the Game of Thrones. What seemed like it was going to be the big episode,
The Battle of
the
Winterfell.
Battle of Winterfell.
No spoilers. It was super fun.
No
Ben,
fucking
you're missing
spoilers.
out.
Hey, if you haven't watched it, you're lame.
Spoiler politics are boring.
Yeah, so
just talk about
let's
it.
just talk about it. You can check back in 30 minutes and see where we're at.
It was awesome. But then I woke up the next morning and I'm like, I have questions.
Hit me with the questions.
The obvious ones, like, I love that Arya was the one to get stabby.
Why are you even looking at me?
Because I'm trying to explain the joy of our
Look at Jordan.
collective community.
Talk to Jordan. I'm going to be seething over here.
All right, Jordo. So do you think the Night King didn't kill Jon Snow because Jon Snow had died and he doesn't recognize him as the other because he's half dead?
Yes.
I think that's my favorite thing. What if Jon Snow's eyes turn blue and he gets on that blue-ass dragon and blows everyone up at the end? He is the Night King.
Yes.
Let's do this.
Are we good?
Oh, wait. So what I wanted to ask you, Ben Hater. Well, do you have any takes? Let's go off.
Yeah, really quick. Crazy that this show has been building up to this moment and this threat, and then they fucking blow their load halfway through the final season. Like, that was kind of badass.
But Cersei's huge.
Cersei's huge, but I think Cersei is like a red herring. I don't think that...
That's fair.
Once you fucked up, like, the Night King, Cersei and, like, her new toy boy aren't really that much of a threat. So, as you said, the threat has to come from somewhere else, and it has to be, it's definitely gonna be Targaryen versus Stark again. Like, to bring this story
to keep
full circle.
Ben up to speed, the Night King is Greg Monroe. He moves very slowly and plays in the 90s. Go ahead.
I watched an episode when people were talking about it to see what the dragons looked like, and I remember seeing the Night King.
Greg Monroe or Amir Johnson or anybody Elton Brand
Although
gets.
I've tried to mute as much as I can on Twitter of the phraseology from Game of Thrones, someone made a point that I did remember, and they said the Night King was probably designed as a character that would not be as important as he ended up being, and they're like, that's why he kind of looks shitty.
Well, he didn't speak, and he had no discernible motivation for doing anything much except for walking and killing and raising the dead. Like, I thought he was cool. And he's not going to be the big one, we've found out, because there's 3 episodes left. And there was some complaints about that. Like, it was building all up to this moment, and the battle was over in one night. Fuck yeah, sign me up.
It was fun.
One of the most psychedelic experiences of television I've ever seen. Like, it was crazy. People were complaining it was too dark. It's like, he's called the Night King. He fights at night.
That's
he
the
fights in the
fucking
fog.
night.
It's ice and snow, and it's night. And there's flying dragons. Like, you can't see shit when you're flying dragons, man. I've tried. It sucks.
So my minor complaint was
That I buy.
yeah.
Honestly,
your hands would freeze off.
You guys
and
have made
there's no
a
oxygen.
really compelling case not to watch the show, but that I believe you guys are experts here. Everything you said, I'm like, they're right. If people ask me about it, I'm like, yeah, it's totally going to come down to the snow guy and the night.
Snowman.
Can't stop the snowman.
So my problem with this episode, if I had one, minor, was like the rules of this thing was so fun because like we weren't doing the David Goliath thing. Like people would just get murdered and you'd be like, oh, they're done from the show. Ned Stark, the Red Wedding, the Mountain
Yeah,
versus
you've already
the
done
Viper.
this before.
Okay.
They cheapened the show.
Okay, yes, I've done this. My question to Ben is, on my Twitter feed, I don't think Twitter has the problem with social media, in my opinion. Where's my soapbox? Is people have to present themselves as a complete version of themselves. You don't have to. You can go on Twitter and just talk about hoops or Game of Thrones or politics. Like you just pick one thing and that's what you use Twitter for. So a lot on my feed that night, everyone's just like, "Oh, how do I mute Game of Thrones? I tried all the words and you guys are just talking about Game of Thrones." I'm like, motherfucker, all you talked about was Dame Lillard for 2 days. Like, aren't we just doing the thing that Twitter does?
Wait, you can mute things?
Words. You can, like, select words that you don't see. So it'd be like Arya, Bran, Weekend at Brandy's. He's just like,
I was
checked out.
worried that blocking or muting Bran would take away Elton Brand content.
Were you
Off
really?
Bran.
I know I was like, Bran, that eliminate Elton.
Right.
Do you know the crazy thing about
no shaming.
Uber was really expensive after the end of that show.
It's like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like the Super Bowl. It was surging like 2 times, like $30 for a local cab because people were getting out of, especially in New
It's a
York where
cultural
people don't
event,
have
man.
TVs. people are getting out of viewing parties and going home to sleep, get ready for the week.
Can you guys recommend some words that I should mute? I'll give you some of the ones I have. Avengers, muted. Thanatos,
Well, then you're
Tyrion.
fucking up because Thanatos isn't going to work.
Winterfell.
His name's,
Night
his
King.
name's Thanos.
It's
so you're
called
probably
Thanos,
still,
and you
probably
want the
still seeing a
Infinity
lot of shit.
Stones.
Oh, wait, Thanatos.
Yeah, that sounds like a failed tech startup.
Yeah, or it's
Arya,
it sounds
Jon
like your
Snow.
thyroid drugs.
Danny, Daenerys,
Kink shaming, JJ Redick,
Sansa, Starks,
Joel Embiid, Ben
Colangelo.
Simmons, role player.
Chelsea Clinton. I have muted. Just don't want to hear anything more about her. All right, so you guys have been no help, but I'm glad we talked about Game of Thrones and came to this exciting end of the conversation. Jordan, do you want to talk about this comedy show? I tried to set it up earlier, and you dodged and weaved. You want to talk about Tim
I
Robinson's
had to make you
sketch
feel
comedy?
uncomfortable for 10 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, it's called I Think You Can Leave. It's been out for about a week, and I've watched it 4 times, which is a lot for a series. But to its credit, they're 15-minute episodes, and there's 6 episodes. Probably 4 sketches per episode. And it is, without a doubt, one of the strangest, funniest,
Can you give us some
most
background, like who's
psychotic
in
thing
it?
I've ever seen.
SNL members?
So he was a writer for SNL and briefly a cast member who I think they just made a full-time... He was the first cast member to go into full-time writer's room while he wasn't a principal player, like one of those ancillary guys that they introduced right at the end. And so he kicked around there for a while, and he had an episode in a Netflix special called The Characters a few years ago, and his 30-minute episode, which was sketch comedy, was very popular, and so they've given him his own project. And so it features a lot of SNL cast members, such as Cecily Strong and Vanessa Bayer, Andy Samberg. And it's fucking insane. I don't really know... It's surreal. It's absurd. It's violent in the sense, like, there's no physical violence, but like the reactions of people in this show and like the way they speak to other people is really like unhinged and aggressive.
Can you give us some context? Like, what other comedy stuff do you enjoy? Frame this for us.
I don't really enjoy sketch comedy, which is why I'm maybe so surprised at this. It's normally really corny, dates very, very quickly.
What?
Sketch comedy?
Really? You think it's corny and dates?
I think a lot of stuff does, especially when it's something
Not
like
like a movie
SNL, where
premiere,
it's like weekly.
I love sketch comedy. I think it's fantastic. I have not seen the show, but I'm looking forward to it for sure. But I think, like, all right, someone wrote an article this week. I just saw the headline, but it was something like, the world needs... Oh, it was during the correspondence dinner, I believe. Someone was like, the world needs comedians. Like, this is the time for a comedy. And I think another comedian... I wasn't ready for this conversation, but another comedian was just like, this is the best time for Ricky Gervais, I believe he said, like, this is the best time for comedians ever. In the history of the last, like, half century, like, this is where we come in and shine. Do you guys feel like this is the moment for comedy?
I mean, definitely not. Just to me, the absurdity of the world itself kind of diminishes the need for people to skewer it. Like, okay, like you're Andy Borowitz. Here's the thing about Trump and Putin. You're like,
Isn't that what he means? Like, we're all like in like this together. It's not the moment for Ricky Gervais. It's just like, oh, you got some jokes in you and you have Twitter. Go for it.
okay, that I can understand, that there's a democratization of the way that your voice can be heard, and you see it all the time on Twitter. Someone will have 1,000 followers, but they'll make a really good joke and it'll have 100,000 likes.
I wish our
Is that-
interns were funnier.
they're
Why are they
terrible.
not funny?
Because they don't get fed.
They're not getting that good yogurt.
I set out gruel overnight, and I go back in the morning, and half of it's gone.
Still not funny.
I think, to your point, I think that Ricky Gervais was like, this is the best like climate for comedy, because parody and satire is only one form of comedy. Like, to your point, Twitter, Netflix throwing fucking millions of dollars and giving, every man and his dog a special or a show. Podcasts. Like, dumb people, say 3 of them in their 40s, getting together and talking about anything but basketball is probably funny.
I mean, right, an ostensible basketball podcast, and yet 35 minutes into it, they're talking about comedy and sketch comedy. That would be obscene. But it would also be a high watermark for comedy in general. I would agree with.
I'm worried this is not going to be the
Ricky's
perfect
take.
pod. We got to bring it strong.
Well, I do think that this show, I Think You Should Leave, is kind of like a word of mouth hit, I believe, or it's got a lot of people talking just because it's kind of a sketch comedy show that we haven't seen since the likes of maybe Tom Green. Like, it's shocking, it's excessively weird, and most of the sketches kind of end up the same. Like, it gets escalated to the point of insanity, and you know it's going to happen, but you can't even pretend to anticipate just how psychotic it gets.
Yeah, I would agree that that's probably the best description of it, and that I've seen like the entire series as well. As Jordan said, they're about 15 minutes. Like, you can knock it out.
Yeah.
But that's right. There's like a crescendo of sort of humiliation and embarrassment and people kind of losing their mind, but then it always has an even more surreal twist at the end where like some other character gets brought in, or it's just a berserk angle. I like it. I thought it was very funny. Sometimes the really manic screaming comedy is not my thing. Like wow, look at this guy really lose it. I'm like, it's whatever. I'm not really, those are not the ones that I found great. But the one that I think you sent around that made me watch it was 3 women around their phones talking about Instagram and the sort of, it really pinpointed the kind of social conventions of Instagram and then flipping it. And I thought that's what's cool. And to what you were saying, sometimes things get dated because that's something that maybe in 20 years you look at and be like, oh, that's a totally different social norm. But for the moment, it really nailed it. It was women kind of being self-deprecating about their photos and saying that they were like dum-dums. And then a woman, I won't spoil it because it actually is really funny, and then a woman sort of extrapolates that convention.
So my question to you guys, and this is kind of like a weird take, but like I look at when someone tells me they like rock and roll music, I was like, oh right, you're talking about kind of like a core finite thing. Like, I'm sure you like Led Zeppelin, you have a take on the Beatles, like rock and roll kind of exists in this 20-year period. When people say they like contemporary art, I'm like, you have a Basquiat take, you have a Jackson Pollock take. Like, there's a core foundation of what people are talking about with certain things, right? And so my question to you guys is like, what is new comedy? Are we talking about, like Richard Pryor? Are we like you mentioned? Who's in this series? An old comedian, Tom Green, who I love quite a bit, but his show came out like 25 years ago. I love Schitt's Creek. Chris Elliott's in that, and I loved Cabin Boy. Like, it kind of was the fumes of like all those great comedians that SNL produced in the 80s, And I love SNL as an idea. I kind of don't watch it as much as I should, but it's like, is it new stuff? Like, is it like rap music that keeps on seeming to progress farther and farther? Or are we still talking about like the greats, like the cadence of Richard Pryor, the delivery?
To me, I think sketch comedy is something that makes a lot more sense now than it did even 10, 15 years ago. Because to your point, when we think of like Mr. Show or Upright Citizens Brigade or SNL, we're kind of talking about prior generations of comedians, and like Bob Odenkirk. I mean, they're sort of titans of comedy, but they're kind of the past. David Cross, and they went into
Kids in the Hall.
Yeah, Kids in the Hall. They went into Mad TV, Living Color, etc. It was
The Dana Carvey Show, one of the best shows ever.
Respect.
It's very much associated with the 90s to some extent. But now, in the way that, say, TikTok is like a couple minutes or Vine was a few seconds, people have cameras in their hands and can come up with ways to be funny and are now more I guess, acclimated to being funny for short durations, there is like an opportunity for like a revival of sketch comedy. And in a way, we're seeing that. When people film things themselves on their phone and upload it, that's sketch comedy.
Is Ricky Gervais flexing when he says now is the great time for comedians? Is he saying like, yeah, try what I do. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. It's sort of like Kevin Durant, the greatest player of all time other than LeBron James, being like, try me.
I don't know that he was tooting his own trumpet per se. I think it was what?
Wow. Tooting your own trumpet.
Tooting your own horn. Do you know what that means?
I do. Where
Yeah.
does the trumpet come in? It's a
Well,
Miles
the
Davis
horn, the horn is a trumpet.
I know.
I don't know.
I'm sorry if that was so baffling
It's,
that
it might not be
just
the prime.
derailed the whole
it
thing.
may not be the golden age of comedy for Jordan.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he's massaging his own oboe here.
No, go on. I don't mean to derail you.
No,
really
let
did.
Jordan stroke his piccolo. And
My God, what is wrong with
I'm
you?
just trying to work with the trumpet analog. Come on, go on. What were you saying?
They call trumpets horns. They call a horn is a trumpet. The fuck? It's not that difficult. It wasn't like some sexual thing.
You sure?
Yes.
You're the lewdest cookie.
That's true.
Well, yeah.
Wait, I thought Ben was the lewdest.
I mean, he's
cookie.
really having a red hot crack at the title here.
Not to oil up my own trombone.
All right,
Is it
moving
Sixers
on.
talk? Is it Sixers time? Was that the
Just
segue?
looking at the big board like, what?
No, I'm gonna watch this show, Jordo, and but I'm curious, right? Like, and this is not like this is a thought I've been having as I get older. It's just like I want new stuff all the time, and I'm not sure if that's just like my memory fucking with me, or like my experiences in New York fucking with me. I'm just like, what are the kids wearing? It must be neon. I'm like, oh, they're wearing exactly what I wear, but they're just cooler than me.
What I did notice recently around the neighborhood with the some of the local youth, really incredible colors of do-rags. Pinks, purples, lavenders. I'm like, spring is in the air.
Are they staying away from red and blue?
That could be part of it, but it was like 2 days ago. I saw 3 kids with just these incredibly spring pastel do-rags, and I loved it.
I love it. Well, yeah, color had a moment like in the last like 20 years. That sounds weird, but I think like
Color had a
damn
moment in the last 20 years.
Well, yeah, the whole idea of like,
Probably had a few moments in the last 20 years. That's a lot of years to have moments.
but it was the art director moment, right? And when everyone's just like, oh, this is the season of brown, and we were just like, oh, everyone's wearing maroon now, and like maybe it coincided with the whole idea of the art director.
I made a declaration like that, and you scoffed at me, but then came
Mauve,
to, yeah,
Mauve boys.
I made a Mauve call, and I think I was right. There was a Mauve moment.
I was hanging out with a bunch of my friends, and after you made that claim, and they were all wearing various versions of like this dull red, and I was like, oh, my friend Ben came back. Highfalutin Ben came back from Paris Fashion Week claiming that mauve was going to be the color of the season. They're like, what does your friend Ben know about anything? Like, you're all wearing mauve. And they're like, this is not mauve. It's like a version of red.
Wow, I'm being roasted by Mauve wearers now.
People are like, who is Ben? Is he the lewdest cookie? I'm like, yes.
He's the one with his legs crossed in the front row in Fashion Week, didn't you know?
Is that guy who wears the Matrix Cookies sweatshirt at the premiere?
Am I?
Tune in.
Do I dip back into the Mauve? A Mauve moment?
All right, get your Sixers takes off, man.
Wait, are we ready to go into basketball? I mean, we've only
Oh,
gone.
apparently not.
We've only
How
gone
much-
45
wait.
minutes.
Wait, how much does your Paris Fashion Week credentials and premiere going? How much does that?
What was that voice?
Yeah, what was that voice?
What do
that-
you mean premiere going? Yeah. So you're kind of like highfalutin. Let's just call him highfalutin from now on.
Highfalutin Ben. I like
Highfalutin
that.
Ben.
He was gentrifying.
How do
Ben, but now
the
he's
working
highfalutin.
class, hard nosed people of Philadelphia feel about you globetrotting to Fashion Week with your mauve? Although Ben Simmons was wearing mauve sneakers.
Ben Simmons was also wearing like that Jaws sweatshirt. What was that? That went viral.
He's got a
like-
nice like Goyard purse.
Ben Simmons is good looks. I'm into his look.
Well, I don't know how to respond to that attack.
It's not really an attack. I'm just like, you're already half hated anyway. So Now the
Beloved?
That was really sad, actually. I
I
really
thought
felt bad, man.
Well, yeah, so let's talk basketball 45 minutes in. Because we could have just gone an entire pod with no basketball and flipped the script, as one would say.
Oh, we're ziggers.
Well, that's what they'd say
instead
at
of
a premiere.
zaggers.
Premiere, flip the script. It's like a cinematic movie talk that we do in the industry. Sixers, even the series against the Toronto Raptors, 1-1.
Wonderful win. Wonderful win.
And it was a gross game.
Hard
Just
to watch.
in general.
because there was just
Nasty.
shit sliding down Joel Embiid's inner thigh.
It's
well-
the poo theory come true.
This is a big moment for you because
Thank you.
Quo's been pushing this poo talk for ages on this show for years.
Can we say poop instead of poo? Poo makes me feel sick.
Poocano.
Poop. There needs to be a P on the end.
What about the shits?
That's fine.
That's what Embiid
Bubble
called
guts?
it himself.
Yeah, bubble guts is good. Mud pies. Mud pies is a word that Tim Robinson uses frequently. Maybe that's why I like him. He talks about farts and mud pies a lot. Painting the bathroom.
This guy, he's a real can of tuna over
So
there.
to bring it back to basketball, was Joe Embiid negotiating the release of chocolate hostages all game?
My God.
It was a negotiation. It was a negotiation. It was a standoff,
Is
man.
that something that people have ever said before? Like,
Who's the lewdest cookie now, Quo?
that's not lewd. That's disgusting.
It was a full-on negotiation.
Oh, the crudest cookie has apparently logged on.
So it was just like,
Come on,
like,
Quo.
It's really hard to decide what spin move to do when you're worried if it's going to affect the.
He's like, is it going to come out now or not? Nah, not now.
Do you remember to put on our 90s rap beret, newsy hat for a second, a Kangol?
Kangol ripoff. No logo.
Do you remember that Das Effects had a song called Lucy's that was
do.
actually about a guy playing basketball and pooping on the court?
I do.
In retrospect, that's an insane song to make. Like, what's this one about? What are you writing? It's one about like pooping yourself, like while you're playing basketball.
Why is
Okay,
it-
cool. I got a verse for that.
Like there's a guy trying desperately to leave so that so that they like have to leave the court, but everyone else is too good and they keep winning and they keep getting challenges on the playground. It's like 11 games in. He's needed to shit since game 3.
How come no one talks about Das Effects? They were a thing.
They were a thing. Straight from the Sewer was a good album.
My first job as a teenager was an internship at Elektra Records, and we worked on Das Effects. And I was really excited. I thought it was going to be awesome, and it was awesome. But no one talks about Das Effects. I just name dropped my job. I'm sorry.
Way to go.
I'll pick that.
No,
up.
I like anybody who was here for basketball talk got a good 3 seconds of it before we went into shit and 90s rap.
Not 90s rap.
Both-
Diggity Das Effects.
Very specific 90s rap.
both involving scat.
yeah. We were scatting last week too.
But the thing about
But
stop it. The thing about that song is that someone came up with the idea. It was like,
Back to
I, know.
the Sixers.
I was like, now
No.
about Ben Simmons.
No, but then it was a duo. It wasn't one guy. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna write this song about like pooping yourself. It's one guy's like, yeah, let's together write a song about pooping ourselves.
Poop is a great human
okay.
affliction that no one talks about enough. When you go into your doctor's office, it's like, how you been pooping? It's an
Okay,
important thing.
But this is what I was gonna
Sitting
read.
down, doctor.
But to go back to Joel
Standing up.
Embiid, the lyrics from Das Effects were, he's like, give me the rock, G. I float like a butterfly and kick like karate. I scored 26, caught a fake, and now I'm outie. I'm taking it to the hoop, and then this kid tried to foul me. Boom to the gutter. I hit the floor. I wanted to flip, and I couldn't. All of a sudden, I had to shit. So I dipped to the sewer. I couldn't control the shit because it slipped past my dick, drip, drip like a faucet, down past my shorts and hit the court and all this. I mean,
The golden age of rap.
it's explicitly about what confronted Joel Embiid. The risk that he was at yesterday was heroic. He would have gone down in infamy if he had freed the chocolate hostages.
Negotiated the release of the chocolate hostages.
I mean,
It's like Dog Day Afternoon, but different.
that is far more impressive to me that he risked a Lucy's second verse than say like a flu game. Flu
Yeah.
game, what are you gonna do? Throw up? Like that's gross. But like if you
It's
actually
so bad. Someone's like, oh shit, time out, Tobias, you have blood on your arm. And he looks, he's like,
oh
blood rule, sorry.
man.
That Jordan flu game was a.
So anyway, Embiid was not good for the second game against Toronto. And whether it was his gastroenteritis or whatever we want to call it, or the shits, as he said in the post-game presser, he has not done anything this series. And yet they are tied 1-1.
Amazingly. Like, all you wanted, and that's like living in the moment, right? After game one, got to keep your takes. I think on the last cookies, I stand by our take, which was like, Philly's a good team. It's a coin flip. Like, anything can happen. They're probably going to win, but they might even lose. You know, whatever. Taking one game is incredible. It makes this series fascinating.
So a really boring theory that I have about these kind of series is that if you're the bad team or the worst team, bad is the wrong word. If you're the underdog, let's put it like that.
And Philly is in this series.
Yeah, right. They're the underdog.
Despite having more talent.
Right, but underdog nonetheless. You can get blown out in game one. That's cool. You can't lose the close game. That's my theory with all these playoff series.
I disagree with that.
You're entitled to. But my theory is that you have to win last night's game if you're the team that's not as good, because they are a coin toss. And if you lose that coin toss, you're probably cooked.
Well, I agree with you in the sense that, like, I believe in... Right, if you go down 0-2, it's much different than 1-1. And that sounds so obvious, but like...
But it's not even like the fact that it's 2-0. It's more like if you're Philly, you have to win the close games. If you lose the close games, you're probably not going to beat the Raptors.
Well, it's like when Nate Silver got famous and he predicted the elections in the Obama year. And he was just like, well, they were all going to be close, but I picked every close outcome. So it's just like... Right, so we talk about coin flips a lot, and I believe in the coin flip thing being like, it went in, it didn't go in, it could have gone either way, but certain teams just have to win that coin flip.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you're the team that's not as good, you got to like pick heads twice. And like, yep, I got it. It was 50-50, but we got both, and now we can win the series.
We can be nihilistic and be like, oh, you're going to lose sometimes, but then you just lose the series. Like,
Yeah.
it's just over. Right.
Exactly. But I don't really have any major takeaways from last night's game other than that...
Jimmy Butler's a boss.
Other than Butler is the Sixers' best offensive player. And
Well, he's the most... I mean, it was funny, right? In the middle of, or maybe a few months ago, people were like, Redick is the most important player on the team. And I'm like, that's a funny contrarian take, but like, sure. If he scores 15 points, you're up because like it's someone who does nothing doing something. So he swings that. But Jimmy Butler is the most important player, but the third best player.
I mean, Jimmy Butler's really good when he's
awesome.
When he's
smart,
being aggressive, taking open threes, controlling the ball in the half court, activated on defense. He's a top 15, top 20 player. He's not as good as Kawhi. Kawhi is a machine and a scary murder robot, but Jimmy Butler is really, really good. And he scored 30 points against a very, very good defense on the road and more or less just won that game for Philly.
It's interesting that in the two series that we've seen Philly in so far, the games in which Embiid has either not been available or, not been fully available, are the ones where Jimmy Butler has been able to assert himself more on offense and get his shots. And to me, they have been the games, and you'll probably hate me for this, the basically Embiid-less games have been the ones where Philly looks more like a dangerous team rather than a dangerous collection, or rather than a collection of dangerous people. Does that make sense to you?
I agree. And as great as Embiid is, I don't think he's a wonderful offensive player. I think he's a great weapon, and there's matchups where he can just overpower other teams, and he can just beast in the post, he can get on the boards, he can get to the line. But running an offense through Embiid is not the most aesthetically beautiful experience, especially when he's going against someone like Marc Gasol, who can stonewall him in the post. It's a lot of Embiid jab-stepping, floundering into the lane, not getting calls, taking mid-range jumpers, turning the ball over. He's not a guy like Jimmy Butler who can score and dish. Simmons is like kind of the opposite of Embiid, where he's not an individual scorer, but he finds people.
I would say a third of Embiid's possessions are incorrect decisions. Like a couple of times last night, he had an open three, and he decides to jab step and go into the lane. I'm like, just take that three.
My least favorite fucking play in the NBA.
That shot has been manufactured for you. Take it. But then he gives it up because he's human, because he sees his strengths elsewhere. And he's a very frustrating playmaker or a play finisher.
What I want is the numbers. I just want to know that on plays where Embiid turns down that three-pointer, do they score at a higher rate than, say, what he would make on that three? Like, just give me the numbers, because if he actually does become more efficient, and then cool, then do that weird shit where you lumber into the lane and turn the ball over and take a mid-range jumper, whatever it is, just give me the numbers. I want the facts.
I feel my anger towards Elton Brand bubbling up more and more as the playoffs go on, because as the Sixers get closer to whatever destination they'll eventually get eliminated from or even win it all, I'm just like, you built the wrong team. You made so many errors here. Tobias Harris is a great player. I like him. He can score. He can do so many things. That was the wrong move. You didn't get any speed. I'm not saying they should have gotten a point guard or TJ McConnell 2, 3, 4. I'm just saying get a ball handler with speed. Help these guys out. It's such a shallow bench, man.
It's wild.
Jonah Bolden, are you kidding me?
It's completely crazy that the Sixers ownership and everyone made this declaration like, we're going for it. We're going all in.
Boban, are you fucking serious?
Boban can't play.
What is he doing in the game?
But that's what we were talking about.
He's a Game Boy that doesn't work.
We were talking about this last week. The Sixers have unplayable guys in their rotation. I know Mike Scott is hurt, and that has extended the rotation longer. But still, your job as GM is to give your coach a bunch of guys you can put on the floor. That's literally it. Give him a bunch of guys who are not liabilities, a bunch of guys who don't destroy the team when they're out there. And you're watching them, and you're watching JJ Redick in a close game down the stretch.
He's infuriating.
You have to take him off the court.
He's unplayable.
You have to. He is completely unplayable against some teams. That doesn't mean he can't get on the court and be part of the rotation. You can't have a guy that is unable to defend any position on the floor, compromising your defense against elite teams in the NBA. And you had all season to come up with a guy, Tim Frazier, Austin Rivers, who the fuck ever, one guy that you could put on the floor.
Jeremy Lin.
Jeremy Lin. But there was a zillion of those guys. Raul Nato. There were all these dudes. Yogi Ferrell. You could have just traded a second rounder, picked up one dude that you could put on the floor instead of TJ.
Speed, who can hold their dribble, who can go through picks, who can run a play on a bootleg like anybody.
And the hilarity of this situation is that all of this losing, all of this processing might come down to just not getting a serviceable point guard at the deadline.
100%.
And then they go out in the second round against an elite team who will go on to win the championship.
Ew.
And all of a sudden, Jimmy Butler's not there. All of a sudden, Tobias Harris is signed elsewhere. All of a sudden, Ben Simmons is like, fuck this. Like, me and Embiid aren't that great together, and we don't have help, and no one wants to come here because we screwed the pooch on the last go-around. And all of a sudden, that team is
Butterfly
back into the
effect
doldrums.
2.
Butterfly effect
3.
4.
Oh, yeah, there's a bunch
There's a
of
bunch of butterfly effects, man, because one keeps affecting the other.
We just had to make another.
Well, see, we made the first one, and then we went back in time, and so...
Okay, we don't have Ashton for this one, but there's going to be a number 2.
Yeah.
No, but you're totally
Because in
right.
the second one, Ashton was never even born.
Yeah. I mean, non sequitur, but like when Dame hit that shot, I started thinking about what if Gordon Hayward had hit that shot when he was with Butler versus Duke. It would have changed the whole idea of the process. He would have gone a little bit higher. Maybe we don't get the Splash Brothers. Maybe we don't get the Morey Rockets. Like that shot, like butterfly affected the entire NBA. And I agree with you. Like this series is really important for Philadelphia because they've been building up to this, and Elton Brand fucked it up, man.
Jordan is 100% correct.
Yeah.
Because that's what the process kind of taught us, that small decisions have a long tail.
Right.
That you cycle through guys on your roster in order to find a Robert Covington, who then you can trade and end up getting a Jimmy Butler with. And the
Manufacturer
Sixers,
value in Dario.
and for example, the Sixers sat around with an empty roster spot for most of the season for no fucking reason.
No reason.
And I know, and I'm not going to do any sourcing here, but I know that they didn't even have a good reason. There was no strategy. I know this as a fact. I know someone who asked them, and they said that, I'm going to keep it very opaque because it was off the record, but that there was not an actual strategy. There was nothing. They were like, no, we just don't feel like filling that spot.
In the press, they said there was no player available in the world that would benefit them. They were better off keeping it empty and keeping their core culture around. I'm like, what is that? Just get a cool dude to sit there.
But at the same time, you're going to have Amir Johnson, who is not playable on the roster. You're going to have Justin Patton, who you never played on the roster all season. You're not going all in if you're not putting playable guys on the team. You have 5 centers, none of which can perform in the playoffs.
And this is not coming from a place of just like belly aching Sixers fans. We're not doing that. They had this core, the 3 of these players, not including Tobias, are good enough to beat the Raptors. They're so good.
I've said this before. I think they're good enough to beat the Warriors. I think those 3 guys with the right components around them are ridiculously good.
3 All-Stars.
I think they have as much talent as any team except the Warriors, and they happen to match up pretty well against the Warriors. But they are so flawed as a roster that they do run the exact risk that Jordan said. They lose to the Raptors. Brett Brown gets fired or something. Okay, Butler's out. He's going to sign with the Nets. They re-sign Tobias Harris at a max. Cool, you're locked in as the Oklahoma City Thunder, a good team with some awesome players
Purgatory.
who will never, ever win a title as currently composed. Then, you know what? You end up trading Simmons for a guard because they're not good enough there. And that's it. Like, you've just walked off with an inferior product, and then Embiid gets hurt or something, and you just start it all over. And they are at total risk of that because they do not have guards or a backup center who is playable. It's fucking bonkers.
And it's even more bonkers when you think about the players that they had in their possession. Jeremy Grant, Nerlens Noel. I know they had to trade players to get players, but like, let's just roll call like Dario Saric, Robert Covington. These are all These guys are the guys they want, right? And like, I'm glad. I think the Jimmy Butler trade was decent. Like, I really love Jimmy Butler.
I think that was a good trade. I have no problem with that. As good as Covington is, and he's an elite defender, Butler's a star.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and on the flip side, the Raptors did this exact thing, right? They took a shot at Kawhi. They're like, we need a season to prove to this guy that we can win, and we probably are going to win. And even if we don't, we gave it a shot. We gave ourselves a good chance. We built a nice roster. We took this shit seriously. I think the Sixers kind of shit the bed in the sense that they're like, we're going to be great. Oh, sorry. Or just shit the drawers.
No
or
salads involved?
Shit the salad. Shit in the salad, yeah. Now you threw me off. I think they saw these 4, their big 4 or whatever, like, we're good. Like, come at me, bro. Look at what I've got. But they didn't have anything else. And
The fuck is Boban doing on the court? What is he doing on the court?
Well,
it's a playoff series.
I think it's pretty clear that you can look at some of the moves that has been made under the current hierarchy. We're going to say Elton Brand because we don't know the opaque structure. It's intentionally designed to obscure who's actually making decisions, whether it's Josh Harris or other members of ownership, whether it's Brett Brown, whether it's Eversley, whether it's Ned Cohen. We don't know. It's all entangled in a way that no one will actually be accountable for the decisions that have been made, except for Elton. So we'll say Elton. We'll pretend that he's actually the one making all these decisions. Maybe he is, whatever. But what's obvious is that they don't know what they're doing in a larger sense. You can look at granular decisions and say, that trade was okay, that draft pick was pretty good, whatever. These are adults. They're not going to fuck up every single decision. Sometimes they're going to be right. Sometimes they're going to be shrewd. Sometimes it'll fail, whatever. But you can tell overall they don't know what they're doing at all because they still think Ben Simmons is a guard. They don't add guards to the roster. They keep trying these slow-footed big men who you can't play with Ben Simmons, and they're doing it again and again and again. There's no learning curve where they said, oh shit, we need a big who can shoot. They traded away Muscala, the only big guy who could actually play with Simmons off the bench, and keep adding in versions of your boy Elton. Like, there's no learning curve. That's the scary part if you're a Sixers fan.
Agreed. And they might get past this round, but like, unfortunately, like, yeah, I mean, probably won't happen.
They don't have a backup center, and Redick has to be on the floor. That's a real challenge against a team that is as good as Toronto.
And I gotta say, Siakam's been roasting Embiid. Embiid is a wonderful defender, but Siakam's footwork and his speed and
He's a skilled player, man. He's dope.
He's so insane to watch him play. Like,
shout out to Masai Ujiri.
people have like a skill set, and you're like, oh, that's the thing that he does. Like the pull up shot or like corner three or something. Siakam has one of those skill sets. You're like, oh, this motherfucker does everything.
He's positionless. He's
does
1 through 5.
everything in every way, and he does it all flamboyantly and well and consistently. Like, he is a complete basketball joy to watch.
He's one of my favorite players in the league.
Yet the Sixers are ready to beat them if they just had a little bit more. Like Siakam, like Kawhi is Terminator version 1 and Ben Simmons is Terminator 2. He's the liquid guy, right? And like, you could take this team if only you didn't have to play fucking Boban Marjanovic.
Simmons shoots 42% during the regular season from the floor with Boban on the court. They can't play together.
Yeah.
He couldn't play with Amir Johnson. So you're going to put a guy who's not good on the floor. That also means that you either have to take your second or third best player off the floor or completely nullify him. It's just mindless. Like, the lack of thought that's gone into the construction of the Sixers makes me feel like they're not having these dumb cookies discussions around there. No one's talking about the abstract future of basketball. There's no like curiosity to the way that the Sixers have built this team. It's all dumb.
I always wonder what it feels like to be a fly on the wall of like an organization, like in the back room when they're all chilling. Like, okay, they're like, we should get Tobias Harris for X, Y, and Z. And then when all that's done and they're like putting on their coats, they'd be like, what's the future of basketball, man? Let's talk about this.
Dude, they should have like groups, like some dude's nephew and his buddies just come into like a focus group room, like with the two-way mirrors, and they're like, you guys just talk about this, and like, oh my god, it's so fucking stupid, and just talk about basketball in a normal way. Like kids who like see things, kids who think, like you said, a little bit more abstractly, and take notes. Like, there's no.
But it didn't work for Google. Like, remember when Google was hiring like master puzzle solvers or like the elites of everyone's small like micro field, and then after a while they were like, oh, you're not contributing anything to the bottom line. But I agree with Jordo. I'm like, if I was a president of a basketball organization and we were running like some stodgy Knicks ass, Lakers ass organization, I'd be like, hey, can I hire like a $60,000 a year kid, give him insurance, and just have him like show us what he's wearing? Like, he watches comedy. Like, I just want him around,
But the problem is that it comes down to what the executives you have value. Because if they valued that kind of thing, they'd think like that. So when you looked at the Sixers, when you had Sam Hinkie and Ben Falk and those guys, I'm sure they sat around discussing the future of basketball in abstract terms all the time, or how abstraction could be. I guess what I'm looking for is like they would look at the numbers and be like, what does this mean going forward? And they clearly did that stuff because you see Cleaning the Glass talks about how the game is evolving and changing.
Shout out to Ben Falk. I love his website.
They're great. And you can tell the Knicks probably don't have those conversations.
And the Sixers probably don't either.
I think one of the most curious things about this series is that Simmons, not great on offense, sometimes can be, only scored like a handful of points in that second victory, but also played remarkably good defense on Kawhi Leonard over both games. And what's interesting is you're like, oh, Simmons, what a beast on defense. Yet Kawhi still went for 45 and 35. Like, how crazy is that you can still be facing an elite defender and go off? Is that just one of those things that, like Michael Jordan, he always saw the greatest defender on that team would go at Michael Jordan, and it didn't matter a lot of the times. What is that? What we're seeing with Kawhi? It just doesn't matter if you're elite, and that's it.
I mean, there was this really famous article that Michael Lewis wrote about Shane Battier for the New York Times Magazine and how he guarded Kobe Bryant. And this whole article was like framed around that. And it was like, he is an elite defender on Kobe Bryant. The takeaway was he put his hand in his face. He didn't worry about the ball. He just worried about his vision. But Kobe averaged like 25 to 30 points on him. But you're totally right. And we were talking about this last night as we were watching the game. It's like, Simmons' defense is extraordinary, and Kawhi is still going off, but the offense doesn't function well if Kawhi is doing that thing. So Kawhi is like trying to manufacture looks for himself and converting many of those looks, but he's not the free Kawhi it takes to like make that whole offense work. And those are the failings of statistics, right? Like we always argue about Kantar, and like my conceit is that he's a terrible statistical player in terms of advanced statistics, not accumulative. But he sometimes can swing a coin flip, and he's dangerous to the Knicks in that way and beneficial to the Blazers in that way. I know Ben hates this, but anyway, like you're totally correct. Kawhi Leonard goes off against the Sixers, and you could possibly say results bias. They lost because he didn't play his usual style of game.
I would say that the Sixers switching Ben Simmons to full-time guarding Kawhi was a difference that may not show up in Kawhi's individual box score, but he's making his shots. But he had to work for him against Simmons, and Simmons didn't guard him that much in the opener. He was on him at times and had a better success rate than most of his mates, and that was one of the wrinkles that the Sixers did. That was the wrinkle. They put Embiid on Siakam and then put Simmons on Kawhi, and then we're putting Tobias on Gasol, and that was something that the Raptors may have figured out a bit by the end, but that was something that I think came into play early in the game when the Raptors just could not score and the Sixers defense looked totally reborn. But one point about that Michael Lewis article, it was called the No Stats All-Star, and it ran in 2009. And I would say, for those who have not read this article, ran in New York Times Magazine, from a personal standpoint, it was probably the most meaningful thing. I'm cracking up here.
Dude, don't cry. It was good, but not that good.
We don't want you to get sick
Thank
or
you.
sad before your premiere.
I wouldn't want that. But it was the most meaningful article I think I've read about basketball, and then it really changed the way that I started looking at the sport. Because prior to that, we didn't have that much access to metrics.
Yeah.
And also, I changed the way I play defense. I started doing exactly what Battier does, which is drive the guy to their offhand, make him shoot a mid-range jumper, and put a hand in their face. And I literally changed the way I play defense.
Again, the YMC legend comes to claim his trophy always.
I'm saying, man, it totally changed the way I play defense forever, that one article.
I always...
He plays it now.
No, I do much less. Before, I'd try to like jump and block shots. Now I just stick a hand in someone's face, and it's better. And let them shoot like 14-footers. It's so much easier to play defense that way.
Look at this guy slapping glass. But
Touch a net, Quo. Just touch a net. Just one. Get your paws around a net.
like the Moneyball era of Michael Lewis and his writing, I think it was like the most enjoyable era of sports for me because it had already been happening, but he kind of put a bow on it, and it was like a storytelling moment that I really loved. And I agree, that Battier article changed the way I thought about money and food and my studio work. Like, it changed my whole perception of the way I, like, kind of live my life. And same with Moneyball, like, as a short person, you know? Like,
are you going to read this article, Jordan?
No.
I mean, you don't have to. I mean, it's
I kind of like my life the way it is, you know?
But, like, and it's funny because Michael Lewis has a new podcast about refereeing, and it's the whole conceit of the podcast is like who makes rules and who follows them, and it's kind of what we watch in sports. So it's like, what kind of rules are we following? Okay, stick to them. It's like a whole my Game of Thrones criticism, but it's funny because a lot of people are up in arms this week about how Game 1 of the Golden State-Houston series was called and how the influence the referees had in it. Do you guys think the referees had too much of a hand in that game?
Well, not only was Michael Lewis involved in a refereeing pod, the subject of his seminal article here was Daryl Morey, who is the Rockets general manager. So a perfect segue by Quo. Right, so you have the two arguably best teams in the NBA. You know, Milwaukee's great, Toronto's great, but two of the best are meeting in the second round in the West with Golden State and Houston. And it's weird because they don't really like each other. They're kind of cantankerous. But all the derision was aimed at the...
Derision?
Divisiveness? Derision.
Derision.
That sounds like a cell phone carrier.
Yeah. Derision.
I got the derision guy coming over at 3.
Yeah.
Okay. All that was directed at the officials.
Yes.
I gotta say, the Rockets, and especially James Harden and Draymond Green, they're all really hard to referee.
So hard, right? Because if James Harden gets those calls that Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni claim he should have gotten, people would be up in arms. If he doesn't get those calls, which he didn't, people are up in arms. Like, he's an amazing player because he broke the thing, right? Like, he's just like, people are like, we don't like the way he's playing this game. I'm like, it's according to the rules, right? It's like penny stocks. It's just like, this is illegal maybe, but we're not sure.
And Draymond Green sets an illegal pick on every single play. Right. Every single play when they run a high screen for Curry, he's setting an illegal pick that you just can't keep calling. He's always moving. He's always grabbing someone. He's never set. Both these teams really
Is he running a Ponzi scheme?
It's a Ponzi.
Yeah, it's a Ponzi, boys.
But Harden does infuriate people because of not only his ability to draw fouls, but the fact that he's actively seeking them out and
He's
selling
a fucking
them.
grade grubber.
He's a grade grubber.
He's a
Who gets into
Harvard.
Princeton. Yeah.
Or Yale $400,000 later.
There was one play in the last game where Harden drove left, as he's apt to do. I can't remember who the defender was, but like Looney or someone, whatever, I think it was, but slid over to kind of try to get in his way and stuck his knee out a little bit in a way that a lot of times you would get hit by that knee and it would hurt. And Harden lifted his leg up as if he got hit by the knee, like kind of staggered and got the call, but wasn't hit. I'm like, that's fucking brilliant. Who would even think to pretend to get hit by a defender sliding with his knee out? I've never even seen someone try to sell that. It's like diabolical.
And he's teaching us how to watch this game, right? Because I don't think many GMs would see him in Oklahoma City and being like, oh, he's the best player in the NBA. Like, he's an MVP. And Daryl Morey, it takes a Daryl Morey to recognize that, being like, yeah, it may not be pretty to you, but he broke the game. Like, this is cheat code stuff, you know?
It's proper cheat code, because to your point, it's like sitting on the couch with your sister and then your mom's got her back turned and you just yell and your mom's like, what happened? She hit me. And even if she didn't, it's just like, it's like what optically and reasonably people can believe. And so that
was good. I like that.
It's within the rules, but not if you're actually cheating, not if you're actually faking. Same as in soccer, like flopping, like exaggerating contact, I don't mind. But straight up cheating and pretending that shit is happening when it's not, I'm not with at all. Like, that's called cheating.
So you think Harden's cheating?
I think oftentimes he is. And then other times I think he's just very cleverly gaining an advantage from rules that have been finessed and massaged to benefit teams like the Rockets.
But
like
isn't
the
this
Rockets recognized this a long time ago.
Isn't this the New York City scammer take that we had last week? It's sort of like he may be throwing at the idea of something illegal, but it takes a willing response, right? Like the refs have to call it. So
Harden has a few tactics that kind of blur these lines. There's the one where he initiates the contact, gets his arms tangled with somebody, and then just starts flopping. And you're like, that's really tough to referee because whatever your angles are, there are certain points when you can't tell who locked arms. And Harden is intentionally trying to find defenders and roping his arm serpent-like under their armpits and then just throwing his arms up, and the refs have to make a call. Because if you don't call it, it looks weird to point. Like, they got tangled up, the ball went flying somewhere. And if you're like, no call, that's not what refs do.
They see the results. They see the end. It's like someone's on the ground. Timeout. The foul's on you. Like that happened in hockey. Whatever. I don't want to go into the sin bin. But the referee saw the result of a play and it compromised the whole series. And the actual play was not that egregious. And I think with Harden, it's just like, right, you see an MVP on the ground writhing, and you're just like, okay, yeah, that's a foul on whoever was closest to him. It's kind of a genius move. Hard to watch if you're not rooting for this kind of play or a Rockets fan.
And then there's also the phantom plays that Jordan's talking about, where his head will go snapping one direction, or the one that I just described, where he literally just pretended to be hit by someone's knee and was not touched.
You got to try. You got to shoot shots and that shot, right?
Yeah, but then to piss and moan about it afterwards when you're being officiated by people who have decided that maybe they won't stand for this. Maybe you'll get some calls, but you're not going to get every single call. And I think that's totally fine as well. If you gotta like live with getting caught.
So here's my question for you then, Jordan. The Rockets, as you noted, griped a lot about several uncalled. I guess mostly there were 3-pointers in which the Warriors stepped under or appeared to step under the Rockets shooters. Mostly Harden. There was one with Chris Paul as well.
You got to give a player space to land.
Right, and that was a point of emphasis to protect players, but also because the Warriors injured Kawhi Leonard via Zaza Pachulia with that exact kind of play.
Butterflying affecting the entire NBA.
So here's a question for you, Jordan.
Yeah.
Do the Rockets have a point?
Yeah. They have... There's clearly, like, the memo was sent out in Golden State to play close to your man and to maybe even live with a few fouls. If you can get under him or get close enough to his landing zone to make him worry about it each time he goes up. And I think it was like kind of a bit of a shot across the bow. Like, don't try this shit. We will go under you. And
we've been doing this shit for years.
I don't know if they've been doing it for years, but I think it was like a nice. It was like a nice few jabs. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Few jabs to the face, and I don't think that all the Rockets griping will change the fact that they're not going to give. I don't think they're going to be like, oh yeah, we missed a bunch of calls. We're going to do it again.
Well, so my question for you, Quo, is... No.
No. I was saying, yeah, okay.
Right. No, okay. So I was saying, why do you think those calls were officiated differently in that game than they were over the course of the season? Because that's been something consistently called. Why would suddenly the Warriors, one, feel comfortable, like almost as a team, sliding under those guys and seemingly doing it with impunity? Well,
I think, like, Daryl Morey's no dummy. Like, there's just, like, you can just Google stats. If you complain, it benefits you in the long run. The next game, you tend to get more calls. But it's small. I think it's human error. I think the joy of watching basketball is the refs getting calls wrong. Like, that, like, no sin bin, most sports, like, getting calls wrong is what we talk about. And I think people being up in arms about it is like, this is where my nihilism come in. It's just like, oh, what do you think we're watching? And I think the reason why the refs didn't call those calls like they usually do for that game is just error. I think one play went, and then the other refs were like, okay, we're not calling that today.
If they didn't call it on the other end as well.
Yeah.
If you're Daryl Morey, you have to raise a major stink.
Oh, yeah, it's net positive.
But not only because of, as you were saying, the tendency for a correction, but your team shoots more threes than anyone in the history of the NBA. Having defenders worried about drawing technicals and three-point plays is a crucial element to being able to get open looks. You can't have guys just flying at your shooters because they will make as many shots. They'll worry about landing on someone. They might get hurt. Like, it is imperative, if you were the Rockets, facing a team that's as good as the Warriors, to be able to get clean shots off without the Warriors, like, just sprinting at them and landing in front of them. Like, you need that buffer zone.
The Rockets are not a beautiful team on the court and in conceit, right? Like, this is ugly. Like what they do is not for the faint of heart. I always want to compare it to global warming. Like you cannot agree with global warming, but it's happening. Like the rockets are happening whether you like it or not. And until they change the rules, it's going to be ugly. If they do somehow get past Golden State, which I think they have a chance at doing, people are going to be like, but they don't play the right way. And I'm like, that might be true. You know, like this team isn't built for entertainment. This team is built to win.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the way that the Rockets play and the way that Golden State has decided to defend them, we're looking at something that's very foreign from a basketball viewing experience, because there'll be plays when there's 6 guys above the three-point line, because what the Warriors are doing is they're pre-switching to avoid Curry going on Harden. So as the Rockets go to bring a pick and roll over with Curry's man, they're switching it once, and then the Rockets will keep doing it. And when the Rockets walk the ball at the floor, sometimes they don't have enough time to do this. So I think one adjustment is they're going to push the ball up the court instead of having Harden kind of jog it up, because they need to get into that quicker. But the Warriors and Rockets, as I said, there are 6 dudes 10 feet behind the three-point line switching rampantly. Like, we haven't seen this happen on a basketball court since the last time they played. It's a totally different experience than watching, say, like a 90s game where everyone's just sitting in the lane.
And it's funny because they're doing all these kind of brilliant, unique things, but they're going up against a nuclear weapon in Kevin Durant. Like, I think his resume has gotten farther. Like, we've gone into some hot take-itude on this show before, and I believe like a few years ago we claimed Kevin Durant in the discussion with Michael Jordan. It was kind of early for that. I think it's when he switched teams, being like, oh, fuck, so the Warriors get a player as good as Michael Jordan. And that gets heat because it sounds really abstract, sort of like the way the Rockets play, being like, no, you can't say that, you can't do that. Kevin Durant, is he the second best player of all time?
This is your point. You tell us.
He has to be in the discussion. He has to. His numbers aren't as... Michael Jordan is so good. He's so good. But like as we say all the time, like, and this is great that we get such a good player to base everything off of. Expansion era, closer three-point line, bad basketball era, not modern. Kevin Durant, the golden age of basketball right now, is fucking unstoppable. This dude is so good. And I'm not counting rings because Tommy Heinsohn has 8. You know, it's like we're not talking about that. I'm saying statistically and on the court, Kevin Durant can play positionally 2 through 5 maybe. He can maybe run a little point even. He can certainly guard 1 through 5.
I think he averaged 6 assists a game this year.
He is almost as good as LeBron James, which is saying a lot.
I don't think the playmaking is quite there, and
That's fair.
I don't think the defense is ever there.
Oh, I disagree. This dude he was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation last
He
year.
wasn't good, though. He's not a good defender. He's pretty good. He can block some shots. He can cover a lot of different
Are
positions.
you talking about
He
statistically?
was in the conversation because he put himself there.
I think the major
He
argument...
asked to be considered, which is...
But like Klay Thompson
this
has
is a
bad
dude that gives
defensive
himself
stats.
nicknames, so of course he's going to like give himself
He
titles
deserves
as
to.
well.
So does Shaq. So does LeBron James. You know, like
Yeah, but they're both
greatness.
good defensive players.
Durant is nasty because on B-ball reference, like Klay Thompson in his height of his defense has kind of fallen off. He never registered as like a good defender. Russell Westbrook registers as a good defender, but he's not that good. Like he just rebounds a lot, and that helps all of his stats. Kevin Durant, you just play away from him. So it's sort of like a cornerback in the NFL. If you're really good, you don't get passes thrown your way. People just stay away from Kevin Durant, so he doesn't accrue like steals, rebounds as much as someone who is attacked a lot. Sort of like that Kevin Love thing. Kevin Love picks up a lot of rebounds because people shoot on him a lot.
I mean, if you look at something like RPM, not to even go down that stat route,
But let's go.
I'm saying Durant is 4th in the entire NBA offensively, and defensively, he's basically about as good as like Steph Curry, which is like above average, but not that good.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of like the general metrics approach to Durant is that he's okay.
And Jordan was an amazing defender. Like he accrued a lot of steals.
But the one thing I do agree about if we're talking about Durant's greatness overall, is that if you look at the way that we discuss dynasties in the NBA, it's obviously historical. It's based on literal dynasties in the world. This was an era in which one group or one man dominated. And I think what's interesting about Golden State is that their era really begins with Durant. And Golden State fans would furiously dispute this, but they're wrong. Because the era prior to that was LeBron's era. So LeBron's era hit its climactic point when he beat Golden State. Golden State had a better record than Jordan's Bulls and were the perfect proxy for him overtaking Jordan. He can't play against Jordan, but he was able to beat the team that had a better record than Jordan's. And it was perfect. It took the title home to Cleveland, et cetera, et cetera. That was the crowning moment of LeBron's life. That was it. And what happened since then, because life goes on, doesn't matter. But that's when the Golden State era began with Durant, because they brought him in because we need to beat LeBron.
He effectively ended the banana boat concept. He squashed that entire thing.
So what I'm saying is the LeBron era ended and the Durant and Golden State dynasty began. What happened before that? The Warriors going 1-1 in the finals, beating LeBron without Love and Kyrie, doesn't fucking matter. Durant is this team. And it's amazing how he has just subsumed this entire team that had the best record in history into the Kevin Durant show. He's won 2 MVPs of the finals. Everyone's talking about, like, is he going to leave? Is he going to leave? Curry's deferring him the ball. And the saddest thing that I've ever seen was, like, half the fans chanting MVP as he's shooting foul shots. Because it wasn't that full-throated, like, MVP. It was like, MVP. Like, it hurts their